Now let us see how can we create a simple dot plot. So come in here and say dot plot. Okay, then we come in and say length, and we want those. Okay, let us pass in our data set, which is tooth growth. Okay, if you run this, so this here is an example of a simple dot plot. Now let's say we want to come in here and pass in the X labels. Okay, so we're gonna come in here and pass in the X labels. Say it is those, and the Y labels, of course, it represents the length. So if you run this, you observe we have added the X labels as well as the Y labels. We can also do the same here and say, for example, what we wanted is we wanted to also group by those. So we're gonna use this other column, which is sub the supplement type, right? So you can see now we have created multiple panels. Okay, so that is also how you can create multiple panels using dot plot function. We also have another plot type which we call a strip plot. So if you come in here and say strip plot, right? So we also want to see a basic example before we move into the one that we have created a group. So we're gonna come in here and say this here is to the group, right? So it's run this. So this here is an example of a strip plot, right? So you observe here, right? We can also come and say, let us change these points by specifying PCH, right? So you observe we have just did what? We have changed the points. Okay. You can also come in here and add your X labels. Okay, and say your X labels is those, and your Y labels is length. So if you try to run this, so this here is an example of a strip plot. You can also try to plot with multiple groups. Okay, also using a strip plot, right? So if you come in here and you come and say it's the length, and then you come in here and say let us use this factor, which is supplement type, and then you specify those. You have to specify data set, which is tooth growth. Okay, so let's try to run this. So you see now we have these strip plots in multiple panels. So if you come here and you come and say PCH, for example, pass in 19, we have changed the type of these points. You can say the shape. Okay, so this is an example of how you can try to create a box plot, dot plot, as well as a strip plot. Okay, so what I also wanted to demonstrate is we also have what we call panels. We have panel functions. Okay, so for example, let's come here in box plot. Okay, and on a box plot, let's say you want the length. This is the box plot we have been looking at. Okay, and you come in here and say this here is those, and the data is tooth growth. Okay, so if you run this, so here is an example of your box plot. Okay, but you can also use this function called panel. Okay, now this function here called panel allows us to use the panels, right? Say for example we wanted a violin, so you come in here and say panel dot violin in order to create a violin plot. Okay, so I'm going to remove this. Okay, and if you run this, now you have created a violin plot using this additional argument panel, right? So next we want to understand how can we use these panel functions. after we look at the histogram, we're going to understand how can we use this panel function. So we have tons of additional panel functions. So after we look at how can we plot a histogram using the lattice package, we're going to come across these functions, which is panel functions.